I don't think there's anything more unsettling than realizing the people you live with, your own parents, have started behaving differently around you, but not in a way you can point to directly, not in a way anyone else would notice. The shift was subtle at first, so subtle that I almost convinced myself I imagined it, but it grew, inch by inch, day by day, until the whispers became unavoidable. Every time I walked into a room, their voices dropped. Every time I stepped into the hallway, conversations stopped. Every time I reached the bottom of the stairs, I heard that soft, frantic hush that made my skin crawl in a way I couldn't explain. For a while, I didn't say anything, maybe because I didn't want to sound paranoid, maybe because I trusted them so much that the idea of them hiding something from me felt impossible. They were my parents. We had always been close, always talked about everything, always shared meals and jokes and stupid family stories. They weren't the kind of people who kept secrets, especially not from me. Or at least, that's what I believed. The first time I noticed it was a random Tuesday afternoon. I had come home early from school because one of my classes got canceled. I pushed open the door, calling out, "I'm home," like I always did. I heard voices in the kitchen, a low, rushed exchange between my mom and dad. But the moment I stepped inside, the voices dropped. Not gradually, instantly, like someone had hit mute. I froze for a second, confused. Then I walked in normally, pretending I hadn't noticed anything. Mom turned, smiling so wide it looked almost painful. Dad was leaning against the counter, pretending to check something on his phone. They looked too casual, too still, too rehearsed. "You're back early," Mom said. Her voice was light, but her eyes darted to Dad and back to me, as if checking whether she sounded normal enough. "Class got canceled," I said. "What were you talking about?" "Nothing," they said at the same time. "Nothing." That was the first red flag. Neither of them ever said nothing when I asked a question. They always gave real answers. About bills, about plans, about family drama, about the weather even. But this was different. Nothing came out too quickly, too sharp, like they'd practiced it. The next time it happened, it was even more obvious. I walked into the living room one evening to grab my charger, and I heard the same low whispers. The TV was on, but the volume was low. Dad's voice came through in tiny fragments. "She doesn't know, not yet. Have to be careful." I stepped into the room, and the second my foot hit the carpet, silence. They froze again. Mom straightened up too quickly. Dad cleared his throat even though he wasn't really coughing. It was like watching actors forget their lines in the middle of a play. "What are you guys doing?" I asked. "Oh, nothing, sweetheart," Mom said. "Just talking. Long day, you know." But her smile was tight and her hands were trembling. At that point, I knew something was wrong, not in the normal parents are planning a surprise way. There were no secretive giggles, no sneaky glances, no excitement. There was dread in the air, an unspoken heaviness that hung between them every time I entered a room. I thought about confronting them directly, asking what they were hiding, but I didn't. Part of me was scared that whatever they were whispering about had something to do with me, scared that maybe there was something wrong with me, something they didn't want to tell me yet. I overthought every grade, every doctor's appointment, every tiny mistake I'd made in the past month. Was I sick? Was I in trouble? Was something going on at school they knew about before I did? The more I noticed, the harder it became to ignore. One night at dinner, my fork clinked a little too loudly against the plate, and their conversation snapped off mid-sentence. My mom's hand froze in midair. Dad immediately asked about my day in this overly cheerful tone that felt like sandpaper on my nerves. Another night, I walked upstairs quietly and heard them talking urgently in the hallway. When I stepped onto the landing, they split apart like magnets repelling each other and pretended they were heading to separate rooms. Then there were the phone calls. Late night ones, whispered ones, muffled ones behind closed doors. I'd wake up at 1 a.m. to the sound of murmuring downstairs, only for it to stop the moment I opened my bedroom door. Whatever was happening, it was escalating. By the end of the second week, I couldn't take it anymore. The whispers weren't subtle anymore, they were constant. Like they were working overtime to keep something hidden from me. Like the truth was some heavy thing they were trying to keep from slipping through their fingers. I made a decision. If they wouldn't tell me what they were hiding, I would find out myself. So one night, when the house was quiet and the lights were off, I opened my bedroom door as slowly as I could, timing it so the hinges wouldn't creak. I walked barefoot, avoiding the steps I knew made noise. I'd lived in that house long enough to memorize every squeaky floorboard. I reached the bottom of the stairs and pressed myself against the wall, listening. It took about a minute before I heard it, the soft murmur of their voices coming from the kitchen. I inched closer, heart racing. The closer I got, the clearer the whispers became. Not the words yet, just the tone, urgent, emotional, strained. "She deserves to know. Not yet. We're not ready. We can't." Keep delaying this. What if she reacts badly? We have to protect her. Protect me. From what? My pulse pounded so hard I thought they would hear it. I moved a little closer. The results came back. Results. My throat tightened. Mom's voice cracked. I just don't want her to feel betrayed. Dad sighed. We're doing this for her. My heart dropped into my stomach. Something was wrong. Something big. Something they were scared to tell me. I stepped closer until I could finally make out the words clearly. Dad said, "She's starting to notice. If she finds out on her own, it'll be worse," Mom whispered. "She almost walked in on us talking about it yesterday, and if she goes into the attic." The attic? My breath caught in my throat. Something in the attic. Dad cut her off. Stop. If she goes there before we're ready, it'll destroy her. My entire body froze. Destroy me? My legs felt weak. My fingers trembled. Every instinct screamed to run back upstairs and hide under the covers like a child terrified of the dark. But I stayed, because whatever this was, it was about me. And if they weren't going to tell me the truth, I was going to find it myself. Their whispers continued, lower now, but I was too wired to catch every word. All I knew was that the attic, our dusty, rarely used attic, held something they didn't want me to see, something that would destroy me. I didn't remember walking upstairs. I didn't remember the cold doorknob of my room. All I remember was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to breathe normally, every part of me burned with fear and curiosity. What were they hiding? Medical results, some secret about my past, something about our family? At 3 a.m., I made another decision. If the attic held the truth, then I was going to find it. The next day, I tried to act normal. I ate breakfast with them. I went to school. I did homework at the kitchen table, but the whole time, the attic loomed over me like a shadow pressing down on my skull. By evening, my parents were distracted cooking, folding laundry, arguing softly about something unrelated. I waited until they were both downstairs, then pretended I was going to shower instead. I went toward the attic door and slowly turned the knob. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. Dust floated in the air as the wooden door creaked open. The stairs groaned under my weight as I climbed. The attic smelled like old wood and forgotten memories. Boxes were stacked everywhere, Christmas decorations, baby toys, old clothes. Nothing seemed unusual. I almost felt silly. Then I saw it, a single cardboard box in the back, not covered in dust like the rest. As if it had been opened recently, as if someone had gone through it. The box had my name on it. My breath caught, hands shaking. I knelt down and opened it. Inside were photos, papers, documents, letters, a hospital bracelet, ultrasounds, newspaper clippings, a small, folded note in handwriting I'd never seen before. My heart dropped as I held the first photo, me as a baby, but not in our house. Not with my parents, not with anything familiar. And then the truth hit me slowly, painfully. Piece by piece as I dug through the box, my parents weren't my biological parents. They had adopted me. And they'd been hiding it my entire life. Every whisper, every secret phone call, every hushed conversation they were planning to tell me. They were terrified of how I'd react. They were waiting for the right moment. But I found out on my own, in the attic, alone. I heard footsteps downstairs, fast footsteps. I heard my mom calling my name. Panic in her voice. She must have seen the attic door open. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the box, at the truth they tried so desperately to protect me from. My mom rushed into the attic first, eyes widening when she saw me holding the papers. "Honey, we were going to tell you," she whispered, voice breaking. "We just didn't know how." My dad stood behind her, defeated. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My throat was too tight, my mind too loud. They stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "We didn't hide this because we were ashamed," Dad said softly. "We hid it because we were scared you'd think we loved you any less. Or that you didn't belong with us." My mom started crying. "You are our daughter. Nothing changes that." I finally looked up at them, not angry, not screaming, just overwhelmed. "I heard you whispering," I said quietly. "I thought something was wrong with me." Mom's face crumpled. "No, nothing is wrong with you. Everything we did, every whisper, every conversation was because we love you so much that we wanted to protect you from hurting." And then I realized something. They weren't whispering to hide the truth. They were whispering because they were terrified of losing me once I knew it. Standing in that dusty attic, holding the pieces of my history in my hands, everything clicked into place. The fear in their voices, the hesitation, the panic. They weren't trying to deceive me. They were trying to figure out how to keep me. And in that moment, despite the shock, despite the confusion, despite the pain of discovering something so big on my own, I didn't feel lost. I felt loved. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not easily, but deeply. And sometimes the truth comes softly, like a whisper behind a closed door, until you're brave enough to open it yourself.